Check, check, check. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Welcome in. Thank you for joining. And I'm excited to share this hip opening practice with you, a peak posture that I have yet to teach in the immersion series, which is exciting for me. So I thought of it this morning, and when I was trying to contemplate what I wanted to offer you today. We're going to work on the inner thighs. So as a reminder, this immersion, the breakthrough is focused on the hip joints and all the muscles that surround it. So I have something I call the 4 quadrants of the hips. It's a simplified way of looking at the hips. We just call the front, the back, the outside, and the inside. Now there's a lot of muscles on the front, the back, the insides, and the outside. So the 4 quadrants of the hips, if we target each one in each practice, we'll start to develop awareness, strength, and flexibility of each one. And then as you are becoming more and more aware of the inner thighs, the outer hips, the buttocks, and the hip flexors in the front, then we have this opportunity to then put them together and develop greater mobility and access to physical postures. But ultimately, the main goal is to feel better on a daily basis and ultimately to become more aware of this physical body that we've been living in for however long we've been alive. And then the result of that attention to our physical form usually is that we have greater access to more peak postures, more postures in the yoga practice. So I always recommend not to chase the pose, but to chase the physical body. Instead of chasing after postures like you're collecting them, see if you can really make it your motivation, your inspiration to get to know this physical body. And if you make that the target of your yoga practice, to get to know this physical body, there you will undoubtedly, and I would argue even faster, you will achieve the access to the physical poses. So for me, like, every posture that I use is more or less, I think of it as the peak of the mountain. Okay, so it might be I think the better way of saying it is the result of the revelation. It's not the revelation itself. So the revelation that we were talking about, anugraha, which we were talking about last class, that breakthrough moment, usually we associate it with that achievement. But rather, the achievement here is not the external, but it's the body awareness that you gain from the path, from the journey, that gives way to the posture. So the real revelation in attaining a peak pose is not the posture itself, in my opinion, is how we should approach this, but rather it is the body awareness that you have cultivated that gives you access to the pose. So may the revelation be body awareness, and the result of that body awareness be the posture. If you approach it in this way, I think that the likelihood of injury is less. Of course, you're doing physical work, so there's always risk of injury when you're doing something physical, but we want to minimize that risk, right? So instead of letting the ego be pushing the physical body, we actually re-identify. We let the ego identify with the physical form in a way that says, I'm going to take care of this thing that I've been living in. And the ego is flexible if we allow it to be. The ego will always be attracted to short-term gratification, but we can train it to change. We can change our identification with, instead of the result of what the body can do, we can change it to our awareness of our physical form, and then the results will still be there. And if they're not there, there's no letdown. There's no feelings of like, oh my gosh, I worked so hard and I can't do this. Because what happens is I worked so hard and now I'm fully aware of my body, and whether I can or can't do something with that is less important to getting to know ourselves, right? So that is my suggestion of how we practice yoga. And I fortunately was taught this early on in my practice with my stepmother, who was my teacher, and my earlier teachers, that there was very little emphasis on the postures themselves, and a tremendous emphasis on how to activate muscles and move our joints. And because that, my attention kept going there. And I was also fortunate to start yoga in a time where there was no Instagram, and I never saw a single Facebook photo of yogis. You had to actually buy a book of BKS Iyengar in order to see a yoga photo, and so there was no distraction of the external at that time. Now you all have this big challenge where you're seeing the human potential, the physical potential, and when you see it on a daily basis, there's something in the ego that tries to align itself and say, where am I in relationship to that? Now, if you look at that and you're inspired to get into your body and to awaken to your muscles and your bones and to become more familiar with this physical form, then that is a healthy relationship of inspiration. But if you look at that and you feel like, oh, I'm not enough, and that defeats you, or it turns you away from the practice entirely, then that is no longer inspiration, right? It's just the ego has been, feels less than, and now it's going to find other ways to build itself up through compensation. So what we want to do is use the magnificence of photos or videos or whatever we're looking at, and use it for inspiration to get to know our body. Not to do those poses, but to get to know our body. And if the poses are the result, then boom, magnificent. So the real revelation, the real breakthrough that I'm looking to share with you today and throughout this immersion is body awareness, not postural attainment. I hope that is very clear for you. Okay, so let's get started. Today's focus, strengthening the inner thighs and also gaining flexibility in the inner thighs, the adductor muscle group. Okay, so that's along the inside of the legs, and we're going to work on widening, or what's called abduction, moving the legs apart from one another while still staying contracted, while being able to activate a muscle. Now, that's one of the things that governs the health, or let's say defines the health of a muscle, is if you're able to activate it regardless of how elongated it is. That's really at any length of, so length meaning when you move your knees apart or legs apart, the muscles lengthen away from, so the two attachments, let's say it's by the knee and at the inner groin, if those attachments move away from each other, the muscle stretches out. Now, its ability to contract back inward is one way to assess the health of that muscle. Okay, so that both requires the neurological connection of thought of saying, hey, activate, and also the actual muscle spindle fibers have to be able to contract in that elongated state. So that's how we can, one way to assess the health of our muscular system is, can they contract at any length? Can they pull back in no matter how long they are? All right, so let's get started. Child's pose, knees wide today, and arms out in front. And with your knees wide, try to settle your hips into what's called anterior tilt. So your pelvis tips forward towards the front, towards your belly button, or towards the ground more or less, creating a deep hip flexion. Now, if that's uncomfortable on the knees or the hips or anything like that, well, first of all, move your knees apart wider, and it should give you some space at the hip joints. But also you can
lift your hips up and place a blanket between your calves and your hamstrings. And that will diminish any sort of knee compression there, and also diminish the required hip flexibility. So in this posture, we take a breath and remind ourselves that we're here, that we stepped into the yoga practice today to connect to our physical body. The breakthrough, or what I'm using synonymously with breakthrough, is revelation, that opening. We all seek it. We all crave it. We desire that opening, and that's a good thing. We just have to be really aware of where the ego, our identity, might get in the way. So let's take a full breath in. Full breath out. With the knees apart, I'd like you to try to pull them inward toward each other. So keep them apart, but activate your muscles by squeezing your knees inward toward each other. Your butt will lift up a little bit. Okay, so you squeeze in. Imagine there's a block between your shins. Just squeeze in. And then release. And let's do it again. Drag your knees toward each other, activating the inner thigh muscles. And then release. Let the knees roll out. Hips will sag downward more. And then again, squeeze your legs in. Your hips will lift up naturally. These muscles, again, are called your adductors, the inner thigh muscles. Okay, and then release. On the next breath in, come forward to all fours, hands and knees. Arch the back, look up. Exhale, round and gaze inward towards your navel. Inhale, arch and look up. Exhale, round and gaze towards your navel. I just want to bring the camera a little bit closer. Inhale, arch and look up. Exhale, round and gaze inward. Inhale, arch and look up. And exhale, round. Inhale, arch and look up. Tuck your toes and exhale back into downward facing dog. Adho Mukha Svanasana. Let's take a moment here. If you'd like to move, you can. Otherwise, you could also just push the ground away, move your hips up and back, stick your buttocks to the sky and lengthen the hamstrings. Take a full breath in. And a full breath out. Inhale forward to plank pose. You're going to pause here, grip your fingers into the ground, setting your foundation. Now, from the fronts of your shins, you can look at them. If you look at the front of your shins, squeeze the fronts of your shins toward each other so that your heels don't roll at all. They stay straight up and down. As you squeeze the front of your shins in, you can lift your hips up a little bit and you'll feel kind of that rising through the hips, through the inner thighs. Keep squeezing the fronts of the shins in, look forward. Knees down, child's pose, hips to heels. Inhale forward, all fours arch, tuck the toes. Exhale, hips up and back, down dog. Let's roll through that again. Inhale, plank pose. Squeeze your shins toward each other. Knees down, exhale, child's pose. Inhale forward, all fours, tuck toes. Exhale, downward facing dog. One more round, flowing with the breath. Inhale. Squeezing in. Exhale, hips to heels. Inhale forward, all fours, tuck toes. Exhale, down dog. Right leg to the sky, inhale. Bend knee, open up the hip. And as you hang here for a breath, you're going to feel your inner left thigh stretching a bit from this movement. Straighten the leg on the inhale, square the hip. Step right foot forward as you exhale. Today, you're going to take both hands to the inside of your right foot and soften your back knee. Take a breath. Now, think about the inner back thigh bone lifting up to the sky. So inner thigh bone lifts up. And now pull your 2 feet toward each other a little bit so you feel your kind of like the center of your pelvis rises. Keeping that, now I'm going to challenge you body awareness wise to squeeze the front of the back shin across the mat. So as if you're trying to drag it sideways across the mat until you feel your inner thigh muscles activate. And then once you feel that, take a breath in and out. Now, can you keep the back shin squeezing in so your back adductors are toned? And let's revisit what we learned on Saturday, the last practice. Press your front heel down and scoop your tailbone underneath slightly, and you should get your gluteus muscles and hamstrings active. Okay, so each class I'm going to introduce a new idea, but we want to still be able to access the previous idea. So what we learned in the first class was a little scoop of the tailbone and pressing through the heel to activate the gluteus and the posterior chain, the back side of the body. Now the back shin, the front of the back shin, that's where your front, where you can see your knee, squeezes in, and that's where you're going to feel the groin muscles up there toning at the same time as your front buttocks, back inner thighs. Take one more breath. All right, and step back down dog. Inhale, forward to plank pose. Squeeze the fronts of your shins in. Exhale, hips back, child's pose. Inhale, all fours arch and look up, tuck the toes. Exhale, hips up and back, down dog. Left leg to the sky on the in-breath. Bend the knee, open up the hip. Now you feel your stretch of your inner right thighs and also the back of the leg. There's a muscle called adductor magnus. It's kind of like a hamstring and an adductor at the same time. Straighten the left leg on the inhale. Step left foot forward as you exhale. Again, bring your hands on the inside of your left leg today and take a breath. Soften your back knee just so that you can kind of undo any patterns that are back there. And then I'd like you to think about, with the back knee soft, starting to spiral it inward a little. So you turn the back thigh in, and then lift the inner back thigh up. Really what that's going to do is keep the back thigh neutral or just kind of facing straight down with the kneecap. Okay, keeping that, squeeze your back shin across like you're trying to crisscross your legs. And you should hopefully start to feel your back inner thigh muscles toning. That toning means like an activation of a muscle about 20-30% of your effort. Now the front hip, you're going to scoop your tailbone slightly underneath, just enough that you can root down into the left heel, and you feel now the gluteus maximus and all the deep rotators underneath there, the deep muscles of your hip, start to activate. Okay, so a little tuck of the tailbone and pressing down through the left heel. Keeping that, be reminded of your back inner thigh. Can you squeeze your back shin across while scooping the front buttocks? Now the challenge here is, what we're learning is a muscle coordination that tends to be very hard for people. It's hard to focus on two muscles at once. It's hard to focus on two things at once, for that matter. But these are separate muscles. The back inner thigh is not only, the back inner thigh is not only not the buttocks, but it's also a different leg. So you can really focus on the back inner thighs while simultaneously getting the front buttocks to engage. Okay, so front buttocks, back inner thighs. See if you can find that. Figure it out. How do you squeeze the back shin in and also scoop the front buttocks? Okay, now step back, downward facing dog. What that does is develop an incredible sense of body awareness and muscle coordination, creating new neurological pathways, or I should say neuromuscular pathways, so that from thought to brain stimulation to nervous system to muscle, these new patterns are formed. Come forward to plank pose on the inhale. Squeeze the fronts of your shins in, and then exhale, knees down, hips back, child's pose. Inhale forward to all fours, arch and look up. Tuck the toes, exhale, down dog. Now let's hang here for a few breaths and just feel your body as it is. And I just want to remind you that a breakthrough implies that you don't already have it, that you don't already know it, that you can't already do it. So if you're looking for a breakthrough, what you have to be looking for is the challenges or the weaknesses, the things that you're not good at yet. Now, this is very hard for the ego to get on board with, because the ego wants to know, wants to already know, it wants to already have it together, it wants to already understand and be able to do everything. It wants to be the knower, right? That's what the ego does. And so when it sees something that it's not good at, it wants to run away from it. It wants to say why it's wrong or why it's not good. Remember, to have a breakthrough, you have to actually break through something. That means we break through the thing that we did not know or did not have. That might be muscle coordination or muscle strength or flexibility. And we have to break through that to the other side. So we have to be willing to actually see our weaknesses. We have to be willing to see our tightnesses, have to be willing to see the things that challenge us. Maybe it's that we don't have the patterns formed yet. Walk the feet to the front of the mat. Take a halfway lift on the inhale. Exhale and bow. Stretch the shoulders and place the hands behind the back. And enjoy a full breath in. So being open to the revelation, anugraha, means being willing to see where we have room for growth. Willing to see what we're not experts at, willing to see what we're not good at yet, strong at yet, flexible at yet. And when we do see that, to not back away out of discouragement, but actually to move forward out of inspiration. Come hands to the hips, arch the back, rise all the way up. And standing into Tadasana. Let's take a breath in. Exhale it out. On the inhale, reach up with the hands. Exhale, bow Uttanasana, forward fold. Halfway lift on the inhale. Step the left foot back as you exhale. Place the back knee down, inhale Anjaneyasana, rise up with the hands. Exhale, hands to the ground. Straighten both legs on the inhale, look forward. Exhale, bend the knee, hands to the ground, down dog. Inhale, plank pose. Exhale, Chaturanga, lower all the way down. Let's warm up the back muscles. Inhale, lift the heart only. Shoulder blades pinned together. Exhale, release. 2 more. Inhale, lift up. Maybe now you lift the hands up. Exhale, release. Last one. Inhale, lift the heart. Maybe lift the hands. And maybe lift the feet. Exhale, release. Press to all fours, hands and knees. Tuck the toes, exhale in a down dog. Right leg to the sky on the in-breath. Step forward as you exhale. Hands on the front knee, pause. Now draw your feet toward each other and squeeze the back shin across towards the opposite side of the mat, trying to find your adductors, your inner thighs. Now keeping that, scoop your front buttocks underneath, finding your glute muscles. As you scoop your buttocks underneath, Pay attention to your back inner thighs. It's still toning up. If so, great. Reach the arms up to the sky. Back inner thigh, squeezing the back shin across the mat. Front buttocks pressing from the sit bone down through the heel. Try to find that coordination. If we can get both buttocks and adductors toned, we're starting to make our way into a new revelation, a new opening in the physical body. Let's take a full breath in, lift the heart. Exhale, release the hands to the ground. Step forward, halfway lift on the in-breath. Exhale and bow forward. To the sun, rise, Urdhva Hastasana. To the heart, exhale. Inhale, reach all the way up. To the earth, bow. Half lift on the inhale. Right foot steps back, knee comes to the ground. Anjaneyasana, reach the arms up. Exhale, hands to the earth. Straighten both legs. Inhale, look forward. Bend the knee, exhale, down dog. Inhale, forward, plank pose. Exhale, lower chaturanga. Widen the feet, interlace the hands behind your back. Shrug your shoulders a little towards the ears first and then back behind you, so the shoulder blades together, and reach the hands to the sky. Anchor your pubic bone down into the ground. Inhale, lift the heart up. Now soften a little bit, come down just about halfway. Lift your left leg up. Inhale, lift the heart up. Exhale, soften a little bit, foot comes down. Right leg lifts up. Inhale, lift the heart up. Exhale, soften, foot comes down. Both feet up. Inhale, lift the heart up. And release everything down. All fours, hands and knees. Inhale. Tuck your toes. Exhale, down dog. Left leg to the sky on the in-breath. Step forward as you exhale. Place the hands on the front knee and pause. Take a breath in. All right, let's get that muscle coordination going. So opposite legs pull toward each other. Pull your feet toward one another. And then now focus on the back leg for a second. Squeeze the back shin in like you're trying to crisscross your legs. Right leg squeezes to the left side of your mat. Keeping the back inner thigh toning. Scoop your left buttocks underneath a little bit and press down through the heel. Should feel lighter in your hands when you do that. Okay, so back inner thigh squeezes in, front buttock scoops underneath and presses down. Just get really solid in your legs, keeping that solidity, that strength. Lift the belly and reach up with the arms. Take a full breath in and up. Inhale, lift the heart up and up. One more breath. Chest to the sky, look up. Exhale, release, hands to the ground. Step forward, halfway lift, inhale. Exhale and bow. To the sun, rise, Urdhva Hastasana. To the heart. Inhale, reach up. Exhale to the earth. Halfway lift and prepare. Step back or hop chaturanga. Cobra or up dog, one breath only. Inhale. Exhale back to down dog. Right leg to the sun. Inhale. Step forward as you exhale. High lunge, rise up. Chaturanga, exhale. Cobra or up dog, inhale, one breath. Exhale, down dog. Left leg to the sun. Step forward. Press down, rise, high lunge. Chaturanga, exhale. Cobra or up dog, inhale. Exhale, down dog. 3 breaths, inhale. Exhale. 2 more, inhale. And 1 more breath. Lifting the heels, look forward, inhale. Empty the breath, hop or step to the front. Halfway lift, inhale. Exhale, bow. To the sun, rise, inhale. To the heart, exhale. Okay, bend the knees, feet apart. Sit low. All right, so like we did last class, you're gonna move your hips back, stick your bum up to the sky until you feel your low back muscles tone. So just take a hand back there and feel if you can feel those muscles. You wanna get those back muscles toned up, called the QL, quadratus lumborum, and a bunch of erector spinae muscles and extensors of your spine. Okay, keeping the back muscles toned there. Now micro tuck your tailbone just enough. So not really moving the pelvis, just enough to like tuck underneath so that you feel the gluteus muscles fight the back muscles. You're gonna keep that and sit a little bit lower. If you can't sit lower, I suggest pushing your heels out and you'll be able to go a little bit lower, okay? Now, the hard part, just very subtly, see if you can think about your fronts of your shins here squeezing in so you get the inner thighs active. Now what will tend to happen is you'll lose your buttocks, you'll lose your back, one of the two, or everything altogether when you think of a new muscle activation. Coordination and that development, that breakthrough of muscle coordination is going to take time, and it takes a lot of willpower, a lot of thinking about it. A lot of people hate that you have to think in order to learn, but that's the way it rolls. We know this neurologically speaking, that we have to put the effort in. It's not just going to happen. So as you sit down, you stick your bum up and keep the back muscles active. As you keep your back muscles active, trying to tuck the tailbone against that, and then seeing if you can squeeze gently your shins toward each other. Now you should feel the inner thighs, the back, and the buttocks all active at the same time. Is that fun or what? It's amazing, right? I know you're celebrating at home. Woohoo! I reach the arms up. Exhale, bow. Uttanasana, forward fold. Halfway lift on the inhale. Stick your bum to the sky on the halfway lift. And exhale, step or hop, chaturanga. Cobra or up dog on the inhale. Exhale, down dog. Right leg to the sky on the in-breath. Step forward as you exhale. High lunge, rise. And open up, warrior 2. All right, so this is especially important for today's class. You want to move the hips, the pelvis back behind the knees a little bit. So sway the hips, instead of swaying them forward, sway the hips back slightly. Keeping the hips back, see if now you can draw your feet toward one another and try and get the adductors active. Okay, so squeeze in, activating the adductor line. Now, at the same time you're activating the adductors by squeezing in, press down through the front heel. Okay, so you have glute muscles of the front hip activating by pressing down. You have adductors activating by squeezing in. Now, it won't work so much if your hips are pressed forward, okay? They'll be too extreme. So move the hips back and squeeze in. Keeping that, get lighter in the rib cage. Arms out to the side. Let's do 3 breaths. Inhale. And exhale. Inhale. Exhale. It's the back front of the shin that squeezes forward, okay? Front of the shin. One more breath. Reverse warrior. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. 2 more. Inhale. Exhale. Lean forward a little bit from the rib cage. Inhale. Hands to the ground on the exhalation. Plank pose on the in-breath. Chaturanga. Cobra or up dog, your choice. Exhale, back to down dog. Left leg to the sky. Step forward. Inhale, rise, high lunge. Open warrior two. Again, instead of pressing the pelvis forward, you're going to move the groins back. It's going to be important for today's peak posture. Okay, being able to settle the femur bones back in the hip sockets rather than pressing them forward. Okay, so now once you have that, think of the back shin, the front of the back shin in particular. And with the front of the back shin, squeeze, like even think from your back big toe, squeeze your back big toe forward towards the front foot until you feel these inner thigh muscles activating. Now in opposition, you're gonna try to move the left sit bone down into the left heel. Okay, then lift the belly, lift the arms. Keeping the left sit bone pressing down through the left heel and the back shin pulling forward. Get lighter in the sides of the body and gaze over the front hand. 3 breaths. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. One more. Full breath in. Exhale it out. Reverse warrior for 3 breaths. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. One more. Inhale. And release. Plank pose. Inhale. Chaturanga. Cobra or up dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Two more breaths here. May we be open to the revelation, which means being open to the patterns in our physical body that serve us and the patterns that do not. And when we awaken to a pattern and we have an opportunity to change, to expand or to change it, let's say, expand upon the ones that serve us, change the ones that do not, then may we put the effort in, the tapas of the yoga practice, the intensity to make a shift or to expand what already is. Lift the heels up, look forward. Empty the breath out, hopper step. Half lift on the inhale. Exhale and out. Bend the knees. Utkatasana, chair pose. All right, hands to the thighs. Same thing, okay? Let's go a little bit wider with the feet though. So you're gonna go feet about double hip width apart, let's say. So wide kneed chair pose. Now, as you go a little bit wider, it's gonna be easier to move the hips back. Okay, move your knees and hips back. Again, groins go back, and now lift the heart up. So you have a ski slope in your back. You have the low back muscles active. There's an arch, a back bend back there. Okay, keeping that. Now try to squeeze like from the big toes. Try to squeeze in from the fronts of the shins, squeeze in until you feel the inner thigh muscles toning. Okay, we need that for today. Keeping the adductors toning, start to lift the belly up higher so your back muscles are fully active. Okay, so squeezing in, lifting the heart. Now take the arms out and up. Keep the back muscles active. Squeeze the shins in. Lift the belly up away from the pelvis. 2 more breaths. Wide-legged chair pose. 1 more breath. And release. Hands to the ground. Stick the bum to the sky. Inhale, lift the heart. Lift the sit bones, lift the buttocks. Step or hop back, Chaturanga. Inhale, cobra or up dog.
Exhale, back to down dog.
Right leg to the sky. Step forward. High lunge, rise up.
Open warrior two. Reverse warrior, inhale. Exhale, side angle preparation.
All right, in your side angle, front heel more or less bisects the back arch, okay? So on these second wind mats, I know a lot of you have them now, which is great. But if you don't have one, you can always put a piece of tape down the center of your yoga mat so you can see where that is. Front heel bisects the back arch. And what that's going to do is help you just kind of align the femur bones in the hip sockets and know where the pelvis is in relationship to it, okay? So it doesn't mean that that's the best way to do this pose. It's just going to help you understand your body, okay? So with that, move your hips back, groins back, and your pelvis should start to tip anteriorly, okay? Maybe increasing the stretch of the inner front thigh. Now, I'd like you to squeeze the back front of your shin forward towards the front foot. Against that, you're going to press your front sit bone, your front buttocks underneath like you're tucking your tail, and you'll feel your front hip bone here lift slightly, more space at the front hip. Keeping that, use a back bend to turn your chest a little bit more to the sky. Maybe sliding the hand down towards the ground or to a block on your fingertips is my suggestion, and pulling the top shoulder back. Holding here again, reminder, back inner thigh, active. Front buttocks, active. Hold, breathe in. And out. One more. Okay, release both hands to the ground. Place the back knee onto the ground. Now, as you do so, your front foot can go out a little bit to the side. You see how I'm on a diagonal. Keep the diagonal with your torso. I'm going to face you a little bit so you can see that. I'm going to face directly towards you. Okay, so the hands are off to the side slightly. Now, what you're going to try to do is lift your bum up and to the right. So not down, but up and to the right. What that's going to do is tip your pelvis forward more. You're going to have to use your back muscles in order to lift your buttocks up to the sky against the tension of your hips. Okay, keeping that, you might stay right where you are on your fingers. That might be enough. Or you might take the forearms to the ground or onto a block. Now, we're not going to rest here. You're still going to lift the bum to the sky. And now, here's the fun part. With your adductors starting to stretch out, can you pull your two knees, yes, your two knees toward each other? And so you can get your back adductors to be toned up here. And you know, we can focus on the front adductors as well, but if you can get the back leg muscles to firm up, that's harder than what you can see, which is the front leg. We're very challenged when it comes to proprioception, which is knowing where your body is in space, when things are behind us, because everything tends to be out in front. So learning the back leg of something will help you directly whenever your legs are out in front. It'll make it easy. All right, and so step back, downward facing dog. Acknowledge the sensations in your right and left hip, in your back. Let's take the left side up to the sky. Inhale. Step forward. Rise. Inhale.
Open warrior two. Reverse. Again, side angle on this side now. So sway the hips back. Yeah, that line down the center is very helpful. I could just see my tendency on this side is that my foot tends to be back behind me, more hip extension, which puts the hips at a different positioning, which I want to be really aware of that for this practice. Okay, so hips are back and feet are evenly in the same line. Front heel bisects back arch. Keeping that, pull your feet toward each other. As you pull your feet toward each other,
It's toning the inner back thigh muscles. You're also toning that adductor magnus I talked about in the front by pulling your feet toward each other here. Your adductors are stretching and your hamstrings are even starting to stretch too because of the way the pelvis is arranged. So as you do that, pulling your feet toward each other, I'd like you to start to activate your back muscles by lifting the heart. So you can place your hand at your low back and see if you can get the back muscles toning like we did on Saturday. Feeling these back muscles here by lifting and lengthening the chest. Keeping the butt back, because if you lift and lengthen your chest and you send your hips forward, that's not going to change the back. We want to change the back by moving the hips back and lifting the heart. Now, with that, slide the left fingertips to the block or the ground as possible. Now turn your chest. Side angle preparation basically still. Pulling your feet toward each other. Is it possible now to activate your left glutes, sliding the left sit bone, which is at the base of your buttocks, towards the back of your knee, just a little bit. So again, the front of your pelvis will lift slightly, like tucking your tail, but slightly on a sideways plane, like towards the back of your knee. Keeping that, turn your chest a little more. Let's do 2 more breaths. And release. Okay, so place the back knee down, left foot off to the left, fingertips stay inside. Now, the pelvis, wag your tail to the left side of the mat and stick your bum up to the sky. Keeping that, pull your 2 knees toward one another. So you start to tone the adductor magnus of the front leg and the adductors of the back leg while you take your elbows to the block or the ground, or just stay on your fingertips. Okay, and breathe. Now, what we know from neuroscience is that there has to be effort in the adult body and the adult mind for neuroplasticity. That means the ability to change neurological pathways and patterns of neurons firing and wiring together, which is basically all that means is learning physically and learning mentally. In order for the adult brain to learn, there has to be a tremendous amount of effort. It's actually very effortful, as they're recognizing now. The difference is we have to change our relationship to effort so that effort isn't a bad thing, but rather an exciting thing for us. We recognize that it is a privilege to exert effort. Now, that's really cool that neuroscience is figuring that out, because yoga has been saying that for years. Tapas is that effort, that intensity, and that comes with transformation and awakening of awareness. So yogis have been saying for years that in order to change, to make shifts, to grow, to find those breakthroughs and those revelations, that we have to embrace tapas, the fire, the intensity, that things don't just come easily like they did as a child when we were more absorbatory, when we were more plastic, as the neurological term would go. So now more effort has to be put into the learning process. And if you can embrace that and change your relationship to stress and change your relationship to challenges, then you will learn like a child, fast, fluid, and quick. Okay, take the hands to the ground, step back, down dog. Let's take a full breath in and observe the left and the right side. One more breath. Lift the heels up on the inhale, look forward. Empty the breath, hop or step to the front. Half lift, inhale. Exhale and bow. Hands to the hips, rise all the way up to stand. All right, so we did chair pose, we did wider legged chair pose. Now we're going to do goddess pose, same concepts. So feet turn out. Bend the knees go out to the sides. Hands could be on the knees to start. Okay, with your hands on your knees, first things first, we get the back muscles toning. This is a key posture today, okay? So pay attention to the actions. They're the exact same things we've been doing since Saturday. Okay, so your butt goes back and up, so you get your back muscles awakened. Lift your chest up. Now you can test. We take a hand back behind your low back, and you should feel a back bend like a slope, like a hill, a ski slope. Okay, keeping the back muscles toning and that ski slope in the back body. Now, squeeze your shins, this time really the center of your shin, toward one another without the knees collapsing in. So the knees actually stay wide and they press outward, but the shins squeeze back in until you feel this long line of muscle All of these adductor muscles toning up. Okay, keeping that sit a little bit lower. Bum still up to the sky, so low back arched. Squeeze in with the knees wide. Knees are out. Low back is arched. Micro tuck your tailbone. That will help the knees go out. And squeeze your shins in. Now take the arms out to the sides and up. Let's do 3 more breaths. Top bus is the intensity that comes, the heat, the friction, the fire that comes with the yoga practice. The yoga practice meaning the transformational practice towards moving in the direction of our potential. All right, and stand all the way up. Step to the front of the mat if you're off to the side. Pause in Tadasana for a moment. Take a breath. Exhale it out. Inhale, reach the arms up, Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, bow, Uttanasana, forward fold. Halfway lift, inhale. Step or hop, Chaturanga. Inhale, upward dog or cobra. Exhale, downward facing dog. Right leg to the sun. Step forward. High lunge, inhale. Back thigh squeezes in, open warrior 2. Reverse. Side angle. Now let's take the hand outside the right foot. Oops, sorry. So you're in side angle pose, hand outside the right foot here, and walk it back a few inches. This time, you're going to turn your back toes in towards the front of the yoga mat, and then start to look down with your torso, with your heart, as you straighten through the front leg. Can you keep your hips facing down slightly, but revolve your spine by turning your chest up to the sky? So your back hip turns down, chest opens up. You'll feel your obliques contradicting each other. Okay, keeping that, pull your left shoulder back. Option to place the hand behind the head to press the head back, or keep the hand on the hip or to the sky. 3 options. Let's take 3 more breaths. One more breath. All right, look down. Turn both toes inward. Inhale, halfway lift, Prasarita Padottanasana. Exhale and bow. Now, in this position here, I'd like you to lean your body weight towards your toes slightly and press your toes down into the ground. Now, lift your bum up to the sky. So pull your sit bones, the back of your pelvis, up to the sky. That will lengthen your hamstrings. Keeping that, micro tuck the tailbone in the opposite direction in order to activate the hamstrings. Very challenging. Lastly, squeeze your shins in toward each other to feel your inner thighs activating. If you can't figure out how to do all those, you're a human being, so don't worry. Just choose squeezing in is my suggestion if you can't muscly coordinate yet. Again, the idea of a breakthrough actually means that you do not have it yet. So when we talk about breakthrough in the beginning, the idea of a revelation, we must embrace the concealment. What we do not have, do not know, are not capable of yet. So when we see those things, like, oh, I can't lift my buttocks up and tuck my tailbone, I can't do that and squeeze the shins in. When you see those things, that's where the opportunity for growth is. That's where the breakthrough will happen if you stay active with it. And it takes time. And the more challenging it is, the more beautiful the opening is, the more exciting the breakthrough is. All right, walk the hands back to the front of the yoga mat. Pivot your feet back. This time, you're going to stay on both fingertips and inhale, straighten both legs, look forward. Exhale and bow forward over your straight front leg. Hang here for a full breath in and out. One more inhale. Exhale. All right, bend the front knee. Step back, down dog. Forward to plank pose on the in-breath. Exhale, Chaturanga. Slide the hands wide this time. We'll do our full cobra again. Those of you who are new to practicing with me, this will feel probably not so comfortable the first few times you learn how to do it. And then as your back opens up and you get the techniques down, then it'll start to make sense to you. So let's go feet about as wide as your yoga mat, but turn the thigh bones inward. Now, with your fingertips on the ground, round the back just a little bit to come up off the earth. Now point your elbows back and shoulders go back while your heart, your chest presses forward towards the front of your yoga mat. Let go of your abdominal muscles and press your heart to the front of the mat and pull it upward to the sky. And release. Bring your hands back in by your sides. Come to all fours. Exhale back, hips up and back, down dog. Let's take one breath in. Left leg to the sky. Step forward. Rise, high lunge. Open up, warrior two. Inhale, reverse. Exhale, side angle. But this time, place your left fingertips outside the foot and back behind the heel. The back heel goes back so that the toes face inward. Chest faces down as you straighten through the front leg. Now you're going to try to keep your pelvis facing relatively towards the ground, not like as if you're doing this, but your hips are open. At the same time, your right hip is trying to turn down against the opening. Now, against that, your belly and torso turn to the sky, okay? And if you really try to turn your pelvis down and your chest to the sky, eventually you'll feel a cross fiber activation of your oblique muscles in your core, which is not our goal today, but it's part of the part of triangle that I really like. So see if you can find those muscles. Option, either hand stays at the hip, to the sky, or behind the head. Let's do 3 more breaths. All right, bend the knee, walk the hands to the inside. This time you're gonna grab yoga toe lock, peace fingers around the big toes, lift the heart. Pause. With the heart lifted, press your heels out and lift your bum to the sky. Pause there. Squeeze your shins in and bow. With your shins squeezing in and bowing, see if you can micro tuck your tailbone. So let's go through the actions. Ready? Your bum goes up to the sky via your back muscles. So you lift and stick your buttocks up to the sky. If you cannot do that, you press your heels outward more, like the backs of your hamstrings separate, and that should help. Then in opposition of that action, you micro tuck your tailbone until you feel your glute muscles and hamstrings activate. Now, micro tucking, I mean, no movement really happens, but you move in the direction of tucking the tailbone, or you activate, I should say, in the direction of tucking your tailbone. So you feel your glutes and hamstrings fire up against the effort of your back muscles trying to pull your bum to the sky. Now squeeze your shins in toward each other until you feel your inner thighs toning at the same time. Now you may only be able to do each of those about 15 to 20% of your effort, and that's okay. One more breath. All right, walk your hands back to the front. This time you're going to straighten both legs. Inhale, lift the heart. Exhale and bow. Let's enjoy a full breath in. And out. Inhale. And exhale. All right. Come down. You can take a seated position and
Take your feet like a narrow V. Okay, so just double, or I guess maybe triple hip width apart. You're gonna take your hands, fingertips behind you, and bend your knees a little bit, lift your bum up, and try to stick your groins back like we've been doing. Move your pelvis back until your low back activates, okay? Once you have your low back activating, see if you can straighten the knees again. I suggest flexed feet today. Keeping the right foot flexed, see if you can lean to your left slightly and lift the right leg up off the ground. And then slow release it back down. It's gonna be very hard. Those are your hip flexors that are doing that work, which are not our focus today, but they're also required for what we're doing today. So lean a little bit to your right, flex the left foot, and lift the left leg up. And then slow, lower it back down. Lean to your left, flex the right foot, lift the right leg up. And lower it back down. Your back muscles still activating. Stick your bum back. Lean to your right. Lift the left foot. And release. All right. Let's do another posture similar. Sit with your knees wide, feet wide, knees bent. You're going to stick your bum back behind you and try to keep your heart lifted. Now, take your left hand to your heel, ankle, shin, whatever you can, and see if you can pull the knee towards the armpit. Okay, now if you can, you do the other leg, and essentially what you're in is happy baby version of boat pose, okay? Now you might fall 10,000 times in this posture, and that's okay. What you're gonna learn how to do is use your back muscles to stay upright, okay? That's what your foot can kick into the heel of your heel. Your heel can kick into your hand while lifting your chest up. Okay, so what you should get is, don't worry about the balance. You can keep falling, but you should try to activate your back muscles against the tightness of your hamstrings and your groins. Don't worry. I'm falling, you're falling, we're all falling. Stick your butt back hard up. Okay, and then release. There we go. Okay. Oops.
There we go.
You got it?
Yeah, mine froze right after we stopped the sit.
It froze there?
Yeah, well, mine did.
Okay. All right. Sorry, everybody. What I understand is that many of you got frozen at this point. So the next posture after that is Baddha Konasana. We'll do it. I'll do it again, just in case it didn't catch the recording. What you'll do is you'll take your hands or your forearms on your knees and press your knees up to your inner thighs, till your inner thighs activate. So your knees press up into the forearms. As your knees press up into the forearms, you'll feel your inner thighs toning. Keep that toning, keep that activation, and see if at the same time you press your knees up into your arms, you stick your bum back. So you find those back muscles that we were working on in the chair poses, the wide knee chair poses, the goddess pose. Try to find that same ski slope in your low back, heart lifted, press your bum back while pressing the knees up into the forearms. The forearms can press down and out against the strength of your legs, trying to press in and up. Okay, so you're toning and activating the inner thigh muscles. Now, most of you will probably feel like you're back here, and that's okay. You're just working your way into this position here. Okay, and then release. Brilliant. Now, take your right leg. I'll mirror. Take your right leg out to the side, left leg in. Okay, so at this point, what we're going to try to do is just take your hands, your fingertips down, and actively this bent knee, which is your left knee, squeeze it towards the right. So squeeze in
And then see if at the same time, you know what, take your hands behind you for a second, lift your bum up, stick your butt slightly back. Carefully, you don't get too far away. You want to keep the heel close to the groins so that you don't compromise the knee. It's hard to explain why, but do your best there. If you need to, you can bend this knee too. Now, lean forward a little bit away from this knee as you lean forward. Keep this foot really active. Okay, now take your right elbow, I'm mirroring, I forgot. Right elbow down and do a side bend, hand behind the head. And come on up. Switch sides. Move the hips back, groins back. Try to find your arch. Draw energy in, so squeeze in so you feel the inner thighs tone, and then bow forward here. Now, a lot of times this foot gets like kind of wackadoodle and turns in. You're gonna pull the pinky toe back. That will change the rotation in the hip joint. So you're gonna actually pinky toe back, big toe forward as you bow forward in any degree that you can. If you need to bend the knee, that's okay too. One more breath. Now your left elbow comes to the inside. Turn the chest, hand behind the head, or reach over, grab your foot if you like. All right, come on up. Okay, so now switch again, but this time you turn the right leg out, lean back, lift your heart, stick your bum back, and with the leg out to the side, you're gonna try to lift the leg up again, now keeping it turned out, and this should activate your inner thighs in particular. Then you're gonna do a few Jane Fondas, just pulsing, pulsing, pulsing to warm up the inner thighs a little bit more, those adductor muscles you love so much. Switch. Okay, so the leg turns out. That's going to turn the adductor muscles to face upward, which will make them do the work. Think of lifting from your heel bone, from the back of your heel with these adductor strengtheners. Lift your heart up, stick your bum back. It'll be harder, make it way more challenging because it forces the adductors. When you round your back and tuck your tailbone, your psoas participates, makes it easier for you. But for this particular exercise, we're going for the adductors. Okay, let's go switch back again. From the back of the calf is where we're lifting, okay? From back here, back of the hamstrings. Switch again. These are fun, huh? Real fun. Okay, now I think we're about as ready as we'll ever be in this hour and a half or hour and 15. Okay, take your legs out to the side. We're going to do wide-legged forward fold. Now, you don't go to your fullest extent, okay? So you don't try to push your legs all the way out because
It will limit your pelvic range of motion and ultimately make it harder in the long run to gain more access. So we do all the actions that we've done today and on Saturday. So you bend your knees a little bit, lift your hips up, and you move your groins back to try to find that ski slope position, that low back arch. Keeping the low back arch, now press the inner knees, inner thighs to the ground, okay? When you press your inner thighs down, reach out through the inner big toes. You see how I reach the inner line long, okay? So that I'm now more on the front of the pelvis. Now, this is where I suggested in the email that you have a blanket. If this is just not accessible whatsoever, meaning your low back is rounded, your knees are bent and you're falling back here, put your hips up on several blankets and it'll make it much more accessible. You can even put blankets underneath your knees. This way you have just more access. What you want to just try to find is an upright position. That upright position is more important than folding forward or how wide your knees are or how straight your legs are. Okay, it's teaching the pelvis to be able to be strong enough to sit upright while the legs are wide. That will increase flexibility much faster than trying to rip your, your hamstrings and your adductors apart. Okay, so keep your pelvis up. Now, pause here and squeeze even though you're reaching out through your big toes, squeeze your inner shins and heels toward the center line until you feel the adductors active. And that should give you enough strength to keep your body upright, okay, without your hands. So if you pull the inner shins and inner ankle bones in towards the center of your pelvis, you're going to feel those muscles tone, and those muscles pull the front of your hips forward a little bit. That's what we're trying to go for, okay? Keeping that, start to move your belly button first towards the ground. Now, if you can, your hands go out in front, and then you melt your chest kind of like cobra, melt your chest forward. Big toes still reaching forward, look at your feet. Pinky toes pulling back, big toes reaching. Okay, and then inner heels and inner ankle bones squeeze towards the midline, inner shins squeeze in, and then that should pull the energy up into the pubic bone and then send the pubic bone back. Make sure you don't lose that activation. If you lose that activation, like I said in the beginning, one of the representations of health of a muscle is being able to activate it through range of motion. So if you lose the range of motion, if you lose the strength through range of motion, that means you're putting yourself at risk. You want to make sure that you're still able to activate these muscles as you bow forward. It's not about how flexible the muscle is. It's about how strong it is through its fullest range of motion. That is what ensures flexibility in the highest level. That means range of motion, that you're able to move through your joints fullest range without losing the ability to contract, without losing muscle integrity. Okay, so I'm slowly bowing forward, but still finding my adductors activating. And one of the primary muscles that activates here is called adductor magnus, as I mentioned in the beginning in down dog, is when you pull your thighs inward toward each other and you're in this deep hip flexion. If you press your inner thighs slightly down and outer thighs even slightly down, like you're trying to descend your femur bones into the earth, you might feel the adductor magnus activate. So I say outer thighs and press down, inner thighs, press down, and then of course your shins squeeze in, and then you bow a little bit more. Inner thighs, outer thighs, press down. Your femur bones, in other words, press into the earth right up at the top here. They press down into the earth, and then squeeze your shins toward each other. Pubic bone goes back. Pubic bone slides back. Squeeze your shins toward each other, and then rise all the way up. At this point, you should be very tired of activating the inner thighs, but you will have gained lots of range of motion over the course of that, okay? All right, so that's called Upavista Konasana, or it's movement towards Sama Konasana. I think it's called Sama, which is same, would be the full extent of wide-legged splits. Upavista means wide. Okay, all right, that's good for today. Let's come to lie on our backs, and I'd like you to just crisscross your legs for a moment, like you're gonna do eagle pose. And just let the inner thighs relax. Switch which leg is on top. And then let's release. Hug your knees into your chest. You can press your knees out a little into your arms as you do so. And release into Shavasana. Turn your thighs inward slightly. Move your butt wider. So you don't over rotate the legs once you let them relax. Any modifications that you'd like or using props is always welcomed. Take a breath in. And exhale it out. Feel the sensation of your body. awareness back to your breath. Awaken with your breath, your fingers and toes. Stretch your arms overhead. Roll over to your side. And come up to a seated position. Take a moment to observe what you've created from your practice. Feel the sensations of your body as you breathe. Place the hands at the heart center. Humbly bow in to this physical body with gratitude that we have it, the opportunity to explore it, and we have this practice that allows us to develop awareness of it. Thank you all so very much for your dedication to your practice. Namaste. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for practicing and getting onto your mat today. Look forward to seeing you in the next practice, and we'll continue unfolding our relationships to our hip muscles and the just the general pelvic region, which includes the low back, as you're getting to become very aware of. That's it for today. Look forward to practicing with you next time. Enjoy. Take care.